Hey, it's Alicia from mobilitymastery.com, and today I'm going to share some of my thoughts about the coronavirus situation. I've been pretty silent about it here on YouTube, and I have been talking to my email community a little bit and polling them. Maybe that's you, to find out if you want to hear some of my thoughts on the situation. And I was actually really surprised when I sent out that email that we got, I don't know, hundreds of responses, many people saying, yes, we'd love to hear your thoughts. And that was about 2 weeks ago. And to be totally honest, I've been really struggling with how to make this video. I am not a virologist. I'm not an immunologist. This is not my specialty. I'm also not, at least here on YouTube, not an investigative journalist type person that's going to walk you through all my evidence of what I've uncovered. That's not usually my style or my thing. So, figuring out exactly what I want to share with you has felt like a challenge, and I'm finally here, ready to share with you what I think are the most important aspects of the situation we're in to consider. So if you're not interested in hearing my thoughts on coronavirus, this video is not for you. But I do believe that everything I'm about to share applies to everything I talk about here on Mobility Mastery related to the human experience, the mind-body connection, and pain. So I want to just share right off the bat that I'm not going to go into anything I've necessarily uncovered as far as the government and what we're being told and what the virus really is or what the illness is. If you want to learn what I'm learning, if you're interested in following some of the rabbit trails that I've gone down, we have a resources page below in the description that you can click on, and it'll take you to a pretty extensive list of links where you can go down those rabbit holes yourself. And some of them are really fun. Some of them are kind of alarming. Some of them are inspiring. But I wanted to share right off the bat, I believe we're being lied to, and I'm not going to go into it, but I believe we're being lied to. I don't think we're getting the whole truth. I have never really trusted government my whole life, so this is not anything new for me to take this position. And I'm concerned about two primary things that I'm seeing happening right now, well, maybe three, which is a potential loss of health freedom and medical freedom that concerns me greatly. I personally always want to retain sovereignty over my body and my choices of what to do with and to my own body. And that's, kind of up for discussion right now. It's a big conversation. I've been having it on my personal Facebook page with friends, and it seems to be a big thing if you're actually following what's happening. And some people aren't. Not everybody is following this. They're kind of taking a vacation and treating it like some time off. So I believe we're being lied to. I don't think we're getting all the information. I think there are governmental agendas happening and big pharma agendas and corrupt entity agendas. And again, I'm not going to go into that. And if you want to follow those rabbit trails, I am posting everything that I have been reading about and following at the links in the resources page. I want to just state, though, my sentiments right here in the beginning, and then I want to actually share what I feel are the most important aspects to be taking into consideration and really using this actually as an opportunity. So I believe we're being lied to. I'm concerned about medical freedom and health freedom, and I'm concerned about censorship. This feels very concerning to me. If you ever study history, silencing dissent through book burning and book banning and censorship of any kind is kind of a sign that you're in a tyrannical system, and whatever system is in charge wants you to only get the information that they deem you should have, and nothing that is going against whatever narrative or agenda they currently are trying to put into place. So I personally always want to take a stand for freedom, right? Like I want the right and opportunity to consume information that could be false and to make that determination myself. I would like to reserve the right actually to make mistakes and take risks in life and mess up and learn from them. I think that's a part of the human experience, and having access to a diverse array of information is critical, in my opinion, to actually arriving at healthy conclusions about whatever you're studying, whether it's the human body and health, or the government, or history, or communication and relationships, or quantum physics, whatever it is. If you don't have access to a broad and diverse array of information, then you're gonna get a really myopic, narrow view of whatever it is you're studying. So those are kind of the things, the big things that I have my eye on that feel really concerning to me. And those are the reason I feel compelled to kind of speak out and let you guys know that I'm keeping my eye on this, that it feels really critical for me to be educating myself on these things, because whatever comes out of this could impact me and my bodily choice, but also you and our relationship to our bodies and our relationship to ourselves, the mind-body connection, and our ability to obtain the freedom that I'm always talking about here on Mobility Mastery. So the title of this video is Fear of Pain is Fear of Coronavirus, is Fear of Death, is Fear of Freedom. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, because this particular kind of mind rabbit trail of ways of thinking about pain, and even fear itself, feels like the most important perspective to take right now. Because if you're willing to actually look at the current situation through a different lens, you have an opportunity. We all have an opportunity right now to actually learn things that feel empowering and inspiring, rather than reading and learning things that victimize us to viruses, to our bodies, and disempower us and lead us down paths where we have fewer and fewer options and fewer and fewer just freedom of choice. I want to always take the road of learning as much as I can so that I have more options and more choice. And then I want to empower myself to use the information I'm learning to make the best choice for me. And if it's the wrong choice, then I reserve the right to actually, learn from whatever mistake I make. So this is not probably going to be new to those of you who've taken courses of mine. Absolutely not new. This may be new information to some of you who haven't consumed all of the videos and blog posts that I've put out over the last 5 years. But something I talk about a lot that's not new to this video, this is not novel information I'm about to share with you, is I'm always asking the question, what do you do when pain shows up? What do you do when pain shows up in your life, when you're having the experience of pain? Do you get reactive? Do you tell a story about it that's disempowering or victimizing? Do you shrink your world, right? Do you put a brace on it? Do you think, oh no, like I'm never going to be able to hike again or run again or play basketball or play with my grandkids? Right? What happens to your mind and your nervous system, and what action do you take in the face of having a painful experience? Or do you get curious, right? So we have reactivity and the instant instinctive desire to squash the pain and snuff it out and eliminate it, right? Because it's unpleasant. And that is a pretty natural human reaction, but it's not very empowering, and it doesn't offer us freedom of choice, right? An expansive, diverse array of choice. If you are willing to get curious when pain shows up, then you have the opportunity to actually learn something you never knew before about, let's say, your body. And that is really what I'm doing here on Mobility Mastery, right? Is I am first and foremost making my own body my teacher and humbling myself before my body and before nature and before the animating life force behind both those things, my body and nature. And I'm learning. I'm saying, teach me how a body functions. Teach me, how to create vitality. Teach me how to look at pain as an opportunity to grow. So I'm always talking about pain being a wake-up call, and an opportunity for us to learn. That's why I call myself a pain advocate. I've said this before on other videos, and it's all over my website, and it's what I'm teaching my kinetics practitioner students, those people that are learning kinetics and going to offer it to their clients, is that pain is an opportunity to learn something, usually something amazing and brilliant and almost mind-blowing. And when you're willing to actually learn about the body, it stops feeling scary and you lose your fear of pain. But what I want to share with you in this video is that when I say pain, I mean every uncomfortable, unpleasant human experience that we could possibly have. So I don't just mean physical pain, but that happens to be my niche. But I don't discriminate with this viewpoint. So I don't look at pain, joint pain or soft tissue pain this way, and then over here, look at viruses and pandemics in a totally different light. That's fearful and reactive, right? Versus curious and open and learning. I apply that mindset as often as I can. And believe me, I come up against my own resistance all the time. Unpleasant sensations, like getting violently ill and vomiting and, being poisoned is not a pleasant experience, right? Getting sick, having a fever, coughing, being in bed, not being able to eat, feeling nauseous. These are not pleasant experiences. But I am in the process of training myself, and I have been since probably I was 24, of welcoming those experiences as an opportunity to learn something about my body, maybe even something about the world. That has been my perspective the last few years, is that our bodies are a reflection of the world. And so when all of this started back in February, this larger conversation that started to come up with friends of mine that I was around. I was watching them, before it really became like a big deal where we were all told to stay home. I was watching a couple friends of mine start to get really panicked about this new coronavirus. And they were already wearing masks before we were told we had to. They were sanitizing their hands if we went out to eat and offering me hand sanitizer. And my instinct is what it's been forever, which is no thanks. Like, I'm going to wash my hands as much as I normally do. I'm not going to get paranoid, reactive, and fearful. But when I watched this just sweep the nation here, and in particular, the town I was in. So when all this kind of started happening, I was in Boulder, Colorado, filming actually the Solving Pelvic Instability course that I just wrapped up. And so I watched the people of Boulder start to panic, right? So we had runs on the grocery store, nobody could buy toilet paper, and I was just like, what is going on? Because I tend to not really follow mainstream news very often. I consume news and information typically via other sources. And so I got curious in that moment, like, what is going on? And of course, then I'm hearing the narrative, like there's a new deadly virus sweeping the planet. We have to be really fearful. We should protect ourselves and protect each other, wear masks, hand sanitize, wash like crazy. I mean, I started seeing, people share pictures of their hands scrubbed raw, like bleeding, scrubbed raw. And I'm just watching this going, like, this is not how I want to react to anything unpleasant. So I want to know what's going on, what's really going on. So I took it as an opportunity to learn, to get curious and actually learn something. And I got to tell you, my mind has been absolutely blown the last 2 months learning about an aspect of human health that I had no interest in 3-4 months ago, related to viruses and infectious disease. It's not something I really gave much thought to. Prior to that, my philosophy has always been, if I need to get sick, I'll get sick. If my body, if my immune system is a little weak or needs to actually learn to adapt and get stronger, then I'll get sick and I'll let it happen. And my tendency is not even really to take supplements to feel better when I'm sick. That's been my philosophy for a really long time. Um, so, so it's not something I ever thought to learn more about. But the fact that this has been sweeping the entire planet and just galvanizing humanity into a huge, massive fear reaction is very fascinating to me. So some of the rabbit trails that I have gone on the last month or 2 months, include learning about viruses. I didn't know what they were. I really didn't. So 3 months ago, maybe currently you're like I was 3 months ago. Maybe you were like I was 3 months ago, and now you've learned some of the things I've learned. I don't know where you're at on the spectrum, but 3 months ago, I would have told you, if someone asked me, Alicia, what do you think viruses are and what do they do in the body? I think I would have said something like, well, they're a tiny microscopic little bug that can infect you and make you sick if your immune system is not strong. That's what I would have said. And I have images in my mind from all the propaganda that has been handed to us by the, certain sectors in our health sphere, medical sphere, of little crawly things and wiggly things, right, that are going to like wiggle their way into my body and then potentially make me sick. And I have a personal relationship to viruses that I'm not going to go into in this particular video, having to do with HIV. So viruses have definitely been in my awareness for a really long time. And I just assumed they were little tiny microscopic wiggly bugs that, can cause human sickness. And I don't believe that anymore. So maybe you know this, maybe you don't. I certainly didn't 3 months ago. So I'm willing to admit my ignorance, and now I feel more enlightened. And that feels really fun and empowering and actually inspiring. I love learning. And I especially love learning about the human body and about nature and how we interact with, how the mind, say, interacts with the body, and how the body interacts with the environment, and how the environment is impacted by humans. All of this is very fascinating to me. And I did not know that viruses are pieces of DNA that are not alive. They are not wiggly. They don't wiggle their way into you. They do not, I don't believe, have an agenda of being killers. They're pieces of genetic material. They are DNA and RNA, sometimes partial pieces of DNA, sometimes a complete piece of DNA wrapped in a protein. I'm not a virologist. I don't know, I'm not going to be spouting crazy science at you right now, but they are not alive. They shouldn't really be classified in the microbiome and the germ theory applied to, say, bacteria or fungi or parasites, which are alive. So parasites are little wiggly things that can inhabit us, right? And I did not know this either, but we are actually 8 to 11% viral DNA. So right now, as I'm standing here in front of you, and right now as you are watching this, you and I both are somewhere between 8 and 11% virus. I did not know that. And this, opportunity right now that we have to actually learn about viruses shouldn't go to waste. I want to embrace this opportunity, or at least I am, for me, to learn things that I never knew before. And this is the same mindset and curiosity and humility that I've applied to the human body as it pertains to pain. And, what is pain? Why does pain happen? Why, do some people get out of pain fast and others don't? If we adopt the very simplistic, very myopic, narrow-minded mindset of Western medicine, that everything has a diagnosis and a pharmaceutical cure or a surgical cure, and we need to, outwit nature, we need to outsmart it, we are more clever than nature, we need to kill things that, could harm us. That mindset is not something I want to be a part of. It never has been here on Mobility Mastery. In fact, I take every opportunity I can to educate you guys about the risky side effects of cortisone injections, the risky side effects of some surgeries, Painkillers, obviously, like it shouldn't be a surprise to you that, we have an opioid epidemic worldwide. We have a painkiller epidemic. Why? Because they're highly addictive and they don't even solve the problem. So I believe we're right now seeing, um, before our eyes, the mindset perpetrated on medicine and science even, that doesn't necessarily allow for the wisdom of nature to come through, the wisdom of human intuition. Say, if you were in my office and I was working with you, I'm not going to pull from some Rolodex of cause or diagnosis. Oh, she has knee pain, so I'm going to do this and then it's going to go away. That is not what I do. I want to listen to you and your history. I want to intuitively feel into, is there something else going on other than just the physical? Is there a nervous system aspect? Is there potentially, some negative stress happening that's actually causing your system to behave in certain ways? Because if we don't look at the whole human being, we miss 99% of what's going on. And I think the same is true when we look at illness. And I'm not a doctor, and this is not medical advice. I'm just sharing with you as a fellow human being that I have embraced this opportunity to learn about viruses and really empower myself by learning things that I did not know that feel actually mind-blowing and inspiring. So one of the things that I encourage you to look up in the resources list, if you decide to go down some of these rabbit trails, at the very top of the list for me would be the interview between Del Bigtree and Zach Bush. So you may be familiar with Zach Bush already. He doesn't know it, but I have made him my mentor the last 2 years. He is one of the few people out there publicly, in a somewhat big way, talking about the mindset and the perspective that I have tried to have with the body as it pertains to pain since 2012. And so he's applying it to human health in totality. And I love what he has to say. And his perspectives just blow my mind. And it's not just perspectives. He'll share with you the actual biology and science behind, how viruses travel the planet as genetic material meant to update us on the state of the world so that we can adapt to what's happening in the world. So I'm not going to go into it because I wouldn't do what he has to share justice by trying to regurgitate it for you. I just want to share my inspiration and excitement actually at learning all of this. Like 3 months ago, I didn't know anything about viruses. I didn't know any of this information. I had absolutely no awareness of how viruses travel the planet on air and bind to PM2.5 particles or pollen and then enter us. And if our system is off, it can impact, our health. But I've always had the perspective that whatever the body's doing is good. And one of the perspectives that Zach has is exactly that. And I want to dive into that for a second related to this fear of pain is fear of coronavirus, is fear of death, is fear of freedom, because that was the title. And I want to come back to that. So whatever the body's doing is good. Even pain, even illness, even cancer. That's the mindset that I want to have when looking at my own body and seeking vitality and freedom. And that is also the mindset that I want to have teaching you how to, get out of pain, whether it's plantar fasciitis or back pain. I'm always trying to look for the holistic picture and the root cause. And Zach Bush's perspective is one of the most beautiful to me. And it's one of the few that totally fits my perspective, but it's bigger. So Zach's perspective encompasses mine. But his is bigger. So that is why I've made him my mentor. So one of Zach's perspectives is that sickness occurs or illness when there's a loss of biodiversity in the human organism. And in addition to a loss of that biodiversity on a, say, biologic level, in terms of the microbiome, which is his specialty. He's also talking about when the human organism or when a cell has unfettered access to information, it can heal itself from anything. And it's actually the cutting off of information, the inability to access the diversity of information that the planet and the air we breathe and the environment we're in and that our bodies are trying to produce. When that's cut off, we get sick. And how this applies for me to the body and pain, I've been using different words, but I could use Zach's words to describe, what I've been describing for years as well, which is if there's a loss of biodiversity of physical sensation and emotion and sensory experience in the human organism, then you're going to have pain. And what are we mostly doing today? We want everything pleasant and nothing unpleasant. We want fast, cheap, convenient. We want shortcuts. We want hacks. We don't want to work for things. We don't want to feel pain. And I believe this pain-averse instinct that we have, this pain-averse mindset, is costing us freedom. So there's fear of pain, which is something painful is happening. Oh no, that's bad. Gotta shut it down. Gotta snuff it out. That's that reactivity that I talked about at the very beginning of this video, is some instinct that, oh no, this is really bad. Gotta squash it now, right? So that's indicative of fear of pain, and it might mean, taking a painkiller. It might mean, putting a brace on a joint like your knee. It might mean stopping certain activities that cause the pain because, you don't want, you're like, oh no, if I run, maybe I won't be able to hike. That was my story for a really long time. So you shrink your world, right? All of these are actions dictated by the emotional experience of fear of pain. So let's take that to fear of coronavirus. Oh no, there's a deadly virus sweeping the planet. I better wash my hands. I better put on a mask. I better, protect other people from me, maybe being an asymptomatic carrier. We better all stay at home, right? There's been this massive reactivity. We have shrunk our world so much right now. I'm astonished. Everybody's staying home for 2 months, wearing masks, not being able to see facial expressions anymore on people, being able to read that information. We no longer have access to that information. We're no longer getting near enough to each other that we can swap DNA, which is a part of how humans actually become resilient and adaptable. So, we're wrapping ourselves in bubbles because we don't want to deal with this potential, pain of getting sick. And then under that is fear of death, right? So there's some fear of death in there. If I get sick, I might die. If my mom gets sick, she might die. If my grandfather gets sick, he might die. And I'm not saying that death isn't scary, and I'm not saying that death isn't heartbreaking and deserves our attention. It does. But it's our fear of death that's actually causing us not to even live right now. I'm of the perspective that life is only meaningful if we're taking risks, making mistakes, learning from them, building courage, strength, adaptability, resilience, through coming up against challenge. That's what being human actually is. And I don't think that hiding in our houses and being afraid of sickness and death is living. Personally, that's not the way I want to live. Now, I'm not judging anyone else for the way they're choosing to live. If you want to wear a mask, you should wear a mask. If you want to stay home, you should stay home. But I refuse to live in that paradigm of fear. And I would like to take a stand for a different way of looking at it and have this conversation with you. So fear of pain is fear of coronavirus, is fear of death. Now, this last one might really throw you for a loop, is fear of freedom. And this is something that's One of my favorite things to talk about, especially recently, I've been having some amazing conversations with those of you that actually took the Solving Pelvic Instability course, which had a 6-week component of losing your fear of pain. So if you're a part of that program, then this will sound very familiar. So at first thought, you might think, like, that's ludicrous, Alicia. Why would I ever be afraid of freedom? Just hand it to me. Give it to me now. I want it. Yes. Of course, if I were to just hand you freedom, you would not be afraid of it. If someone just handed me freedom, of course, I would take it and run with it. The reason we are afraid of freedom, now you could replace the word freedom with success or happiness or joy, right? So anything good, maybe, but I'm going to use the word freedom. The reason we are afraid of freedom is because subconsciously we are aware of exactly what we'll have to confront to achieve it, to get that experience and earn it. Because freedom does have to be earned. It is not something handed to us, I don't believe. We have to earn it. And the things we have to go through and confront and move through in order to earn it are scary. So what do I mean by this? Well, let's talk about something, related to this channel that's pretty simple. It might mean getting on a foam roller and releasing some fascia that's really intense to release. You might call it painful. Maybe that experience even brings up some emotion in you, and you might have an emotional release. And subconsciously, you might feel resistant to that experience because you may feel ill-equipped or not ready to have that experience of sensation and emotion. So that's one example. I'll tell you, for me, I've been way more comfortable with pain my whole life, and freedom is the thing I've been more afraid of. Why? Because for me personally, what I have had to do to earn my freedom, the freedom that is unique to me, it's like a freedom fingerprint unique to me that maybe if you believe in this kind of thing, I came in with in my soul. I came in with a certain personality, with a certain mission, with a certain, desire for self-expression, that has been kind of opposed my whole life. So growing up, I learned that if I actually express myself fully, I encounter emotional and relational pain, social ostracism, or shaming language, or judgment, or punishment even, for speaking my truth. And so I learned to stop speaking my truth. And I learned to stop speaking up, and I learned to stuff my emotions down. And in fact, if you're familiar with my story, I didn't feel much emotion from age 17 to 24 because I had had so much by the time I was 17 that my body just was like, my psyche was like, nope, no more, too much. And it actually took, at age 24, it took me saying, I'm ready. I'm finally ready to feel the full biodiversity of physical sensation and emotional experience. And that has been a process of many, many years. I mean, I'm not finished. So when this coronavirus situation first started, I noticed immediately in me the fear arising of, I feel so compelled right now to speak up about this because I feel so strongly that this is not an empowering, inspiring lens and perspective through which to look at what's happening. And I wanted to immediately speak out about it. And I noticed in myself the fear of social ostracism and the fear of rejection for me taking a stand for what I believe. So it's actually been quite a process of building my courage muscle to even stand here in front of you and share all of this. And I'm sharing that with you just to be totally transparent and to model what I'm talking about. So I chose to use this opportunity of this coronavirus situation to confront a deep-seated fear of mine and earn more freedom by moving through what I fear the most into ownership of my voice, ownership of my paradigm that I'm living in, ownership of my beliefs and my choices. So for example, my choice to not wear a mask. I have lost friends through this experience. I have, pissed some people off. I've lost the support, I guess you could say, or at least the relationship to even people who were clients of mine previously, because they don't like what I have to say right now. They judge it dangerous, and I've been called selfish and a murderer for not wearing a mask, and all kinds of things. So this is the gauntlet that I have had to run the last 2 months. And I've been mostly doing this either in verbal conversation with people in my life or on my personal Facebook page. So I actually invite you, if you're curious. I have posted everything publicly. It's not just between my friends. So if you're curious about my thoughts going all the way back to the very beginning, then I invite you to check out my personal Facebook page. We'll share the link below this video as well. I'm not hiding any of it. I'm not here to hide anymore. And this has been very, very, very painful for me. Confronting the loss of friendships, and even some of which, are people that I've known for 30 years. And other people who, I thought I would always at least stay lovingly connected to, if not, like direct relationship in my life. And those relationships are dissolving. And I'm finding new people. I'm finding new people that actually are supportive of me speaking my voice, and also want to live in a paradigm that is empowering versus victimizing or disempowering, that is inspiring, and that is inclusive of nature, not just our human desire to not feel anything unpleasant. So I'm sharing that with you because you have your own version of that. I don't know what it is. For me, the ultimate freedom for me is to fully stand in my paradigm, in my truth, which includes evolution. Like, I stand right now for the right to maybe disagree with myself from 5 years ago, right? If I watch some of the mobility mastery videos back, I might say, wow, I've learned so much since 5 years ago. I'm like a new person, and I don't even agree with myself back then, right? Like, I reserve the right to actually continually evolve, to continually grow, to continually learn and expand my mind, to expand my consciousness, to expand my understanding of what a human being is, what a human body is, and what this world encompasses. Well, like, how does nature function? I'm fascinated by that, right? And how do we interface with nature in such a way that we can all be healthy and full of vitality instead of sick? So a stance that I have taken for the last couple years, this shouldn't be a surprise to you if you've been following me, is that we can't keep poisoning and killing the planet and expect to be fully healthy. That's selfish. And I'm of the belief that our bodies hold us accountable to a consciousness that could include reverence for nature and reverence for the animating force in our bodies, reverence for our bodies and what they do for us, and to kind of bring it back to this idea of biodiversity of sensation and emotional experience and information, right? To use some of Zach's language, the more willing we are to feel unpleasant sensations and emotions, and the more aware we are, the more awareness we can cultivate about the nuance of all of these sensory experiences that we can have as human beings, the more expansive our consciousness and our perception of self and the world. And I think the final thought that I want to leave you with today is something that I have talked about before in other places, which is the degree to which we can actually recognize or perceive truth out in the world. And when I say truth, I do believe that there's a unequivocal truth, like some kind of existential spiritual truth out there. I don't claim to know what it is. I am on a journey, though, to learn what it is, perhaps, or at least see certain angles of it through my personal life experience. But truth has many layers. So when I say that, I'm not just saying like the truth. I think it's nuanced and complex. The degree to which we can perceive truth out in the world is the degree to which we've been truthful with ourselves and perceived our own truth. And I don't know about you, but I have lived a life of self-delusion, in many cases lying to myself, telling myself comforting stories that turned out to not actually have any bearing on reality because I didn't want to face the painful truth. For example, from 17 to 24, I told myself every day, like, I tried to pretend I'm normal, I'm fine, I don't want anyone to know what's actually going on here. God, why am I so anxiety ridden? Why does my digestion hurt? Why does my knee hurt? That's so annoying. My body's betraying me. Oh, but if you ask me how I'm doing, I'd say, I'm good. I'm fine. I wanted to be normal. I wanted to be fine. So I lied to myself and I lied to everyone else in my life. And my life changed ultimately for the better at age 24 when I finally wrote in a journal, I am utterly traumatized. And that was the day I opened the door to freedom because I was finally willing to look at the painful truth. I was very traumatized in body, soul, and spirit. I had to confront that. I had to actually welcome all the pain that I hadn't been willing to feel up to that point. And this has been an uncovering of mine up to and including this very moment right now. I am pretty sure that there are still some self-delusions and lies that I've been telling myself that I'll uncover, tomorrow or next year. I don't know that I'm done, but the more truthful I've been willing to be with myself about my relationships, about my body, about my own motivations and my own resistance and my own capacities and my own, fears and refusal to do certain things that I know are good for me because, I don't know, over here, like not doing anything is a lot more comfortable. The degree to which I can be truthful with myself is the degree to which I have freedom and the degree to which I can perceive truth out there in the world. And this comes back to that idea of unfettered access to information and a diverse experience, not just a diverse biological environment in our bodies, let's say, with the microbiome and even, some of the things we talk about on this channel, collagen, hyaluronic acid, and fibroblasts and fasciites, right? The more biodiverse our ecosystem and the more biodiverse our sensory and emotional experience. The more free we are, the more choice we see, the more truth we can perceive. So I'll leave you with that. And again, just remind you that all of the rabbit trails that I've been on are linked to at the resources link below. They're just in list format right now, and we're going to put them in kind of a descending order of what I feel are the most important videos at the top, and then going down. And obviously, if I'm putting them there on this page, they're important to me for looking at this current situation we're in from a diverse perspective. So they're all important in my opinion, but you may not have the time that I have put into this. I've put in a tremendous amount of time educating myself and learning from a diverse perspective. So if you want to go down those rabbit trails, we'll put those links below. I'd love, of course, to hear your thoughts on this and how you are looking at the current situation, some of the choices maybe you're making. But more importantly for me, I'd really love to hear your thoughts on this idea of increasing the biodiversity of our human experience so that we can perceive more, so that we can know more, so that we can, have a more free human experience and have more choice instead of this narrow, myopic mindset that we're currently kind of under or being told to adopt, right? So please share your thoughts below. Thank you so much for watching this. I hope you got something out of it, and I'll see you soon.